Hello, Carol and friends. Woohoo! So I'll just be starting. Our event today. So hello, everyone. To our Zoom and also everyone that is live. We are sharing and we are streaming the today's session in both Facebook and YouTube live. But if you want to have a more immersive experience and actually be able to speak with our speaker and ask him your questions directly, you can just join the Zoom session and you will find the link for this Zoom session down there on the chat of both Facebook and YouTube. So please join us. The 15x4 organization aims to share knowledge, and we want to share knowledge with the people, so with you, and all the talks are prepared by people. So the talks are prepared so that they are accessible to everyone, whether or not you have previous knowledge about the subject. 15x4 has been around since 2017, and since then, we have more than 38 events, and we had a lot of speakers. If you are interested, you can check many of our previous talks in our YouTube channel. And we have talks that go from the birth of the alphabet to economics, to biology, neuroscience. So just take a look at our YouTube. Maybe you will find something that you can learn something from. Coming back to today's session is going to be about dreams by Alessandro Ulivi. And you will have the opportunity to ask questions to our speakers. You can ask questions directly on the Zoom session, or you can also ask on Facebook and on YouTube. Today, we will start by having the talk about dreams from Alessandro, and then we'll have a short period where we'll have some time to ask questions and for Alessandro to answer them. We'll then have a networking session where everyone that is part of the Zoom session is able to interact and speak with each other. Finally, so that you can interact with us, if you are part of the Zoom session, if you want to be part of it, check the link on Facebook and YouTube. If you're part of the Zoom session, we will ask you to please switch off your microphone, but switch on your camera. It is a Zoom session, and this way we can actually see you, and it will provide a more interactive experience between the speaker and amongst ourselves. So please let us see your pretty faces. If you want to ask a question to our speaker, feel free to raise your hand. You can just go here to the 𝗠𝗂𝗶𝗵𝗵. I'm sorry for my German, it's terrible. Or the participants in an English Zoom, and then you just raise your hand. Once your question is done, you can click on the same button to lower your hand. Once you raise your hand, you just turn on your camera, and then you can ask the question to the speaker directly. You can also write your questions if you're comfortable asking them face-to-face. Just click on the chat icon and then type your questions, and I will pass along the question to Alessandro. Of course, you can also use the chat options from both YouTube and Facebook to ask the questions, and I will pass them along again to Alessandro. And without further ado, we will just move on to the talk by Alessandro. His talk will be about, as I have told many times already, it will be about dreams. And Alessandro is a postdoc at the Max Planck Institute of Psychiatry. He's from Italy, and as he told me, as an Italian man, he loves football, apparently. It's a thing, not soccer, football. And he also loves sitcoms, and he's actually working on memory formation, but today's talk is going to be about dreams that apparently is somehow related to the formation of memory, but I will let him explain more about that. So please, Alessandro, if you could just, we'll just go on to your talk. I will stop sharing my screen, and you should be able to share yours.
Okay. Thank you, Liliana.
Hi, everyone that I can see.
And hi, everybody. So let's start speaking about
Alessandro,
dreams.
we cannot hear you, or I cannot hear you. Can you try to talk?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay, so let's speak about dreams. So every night when we go to sleep, we dream about something. Some of us remember the dreams, some others they don't, but we all dream. But what are dreams? What is happening into our brain when we dream, and why this happens? Let's see these together. So these are the topics I would like to speak about in my presentation. And I would like to start, because I think it's important to start, by speaking a bit about how research about dreaming is done. In particular, as you can imagine, there is some research going on about dreaming, but this research is constantly challenged by the fact that, as you can imagine, neither we can record dreams or measure them using some special machine, nor it is possible to ask animals to speak about their dreams. So this means that most of the research is done in humans, which also means that it is possible to record the activity of the brain while people are sleeping, and this can be done using different techniques. And then, as bad as it is, when something interesting is happening, it's possible to wake people up and ask whether they're dreaming and what is the content of their dreams. So psychoanalysis also contributed, especially in interpreting the function of dreams, while animal research is mainly contributing indirectly, and in particular by understanding the mechanisms and the function of sleep. So thanks to all this research, we are starting to get some insights into the biology of dreams. And I would like, of course, to speak a bit about it. But I want to start by speaking quickly about the biology of sleep. In particular, I think that probably most of us think that when we are sleeping, our brain is kind of switched off. Well, this is not the case. Not only, of course, our brain is on, but we also go through multiple different activation phases while we are sleeping. And we go through these phases repeatedly over a night in what are called cycles of sleep. So this we know because, as I explained it is possible to record the activity of the brain while we sleep. And this is what comes out from the recordings. These graphs look quite complicated, but I would like to briefly explain them. In particular, this is the activation state, the activity of our brain when we are awake. You see that the rhythm, the frequency of these waves is very high, which means that the brain is very active. For most of our sleep, and in particular during light and deep sleep, the activity of the brain is kind of boring, meaning that the brain is not very active, and indeed you see that the frequency of these waves is decreased. Neurons are very synchronized, which is reflected in the fact that these waves are bigger. However, they are following a very calm rhythm. What is very interesting, and I want to point your attention on, is a particular phase that we enter in certain periods of the sleep, and is called REM sleep. During this phase, the activity of the brain is almost as high as when we are awake. Neuronal activity is desynchronized, so most of the rhythm are lost. Because of this particular activation state, REM sleep is known also as paradoxical sleep. During this phase, also the heart rate is increased, movements are blocked, and there is the appearance of these rapid eye movements, which give the name of this phase as REM sleep, while all the rest of our sleep is known as non-REM sleep. So what is interesting is that most of our dreams happen during REM sleep. Up to 80% of the times that someone is awakened during REM sleep, he or she reports about dreaming. So this has also led to sort of a bias in dream research. And in many studies, the words REM sleep and dreaming are interchangeable. But what we know by now is that we dream also during non-REM sleep, only less frequently. What is interesting is that the content of REM and non-REM dreams is different. And in particular, REM dreams are usually more vivid, they are more irrational, and importantly, they are also more emotional than non-REM ones. So quite recently, a big step forward has been made in dream research by revealing sort of a signature of dreaming. Scientists, by recording the activity of our brain in a region which is located here in the back, they were able to reveal an activation pattern which is tightly associated to dreams, and this both during REM and non-REM sleep. So the association was so strong that it was actually possible in real time to monitor the activity of the brain in this region, wake up people, and predict whether they were dreaming or not. And what is very interesting is that previous reports about the activation of that region during wakefulness had already been associated to experiences which are described as being in a parallel universe or in a dreamlike state. So, of course, it would be very interesting to go even more into details and understand what are the mechanisms which lead to this activation pattern. But this is, of course, very difficult because it would probably imply to directly manipulate neuronal activity, and this, of course, is not possible in humans. So another interesting observation is that the general activation state of our brain during REM sleep, which, as I explained, is highly associated to dreams, well, it kind of makes sense, meaning that, for example, we see the activation of regions which are important for our emotions, and in particular for fear emotions. And also we see the activation of regions which are important for visual imagination. On the other side, for example, regions important for the control of the situation or for taking a third-person point of view, they're switched off, which is consistent with the fact that when we dream, we are not usually aware that we are dreaming. We tend to believe that what we are experiencing is real, as well as usually dreams are a first-person experience. And finally, what is also very nice is that the specific content of different dreams is also associated to the activation of brain regions which make sense for that content. For example, when people report about dreaming some phase, we see the concomitant activation of a region which is known to be important for phase perception. Now coming to dreams function, and in particular to the big question, why do we dream? Well, as disappointing as it might be, true is that we don't exactly know why we dream. There are even theories which propose that dreams have actually no function. They are just side products of the activity of our brain when we sleep. Nevertheless, most of scientists, they now believe that dreaming has some function. And I would like now to explain what are the two main hypotheses about dreams function. But in doing this, I would like to start by speaking very quickly about dreams content. And this because the two main hypothesized functions, they somehow reflect the two different aspects of dream content. In particular, what I want you to notice is this. On the one hand, dreams are in continuity with reality, with wakefulness. We tend to dream about real elements. Not only this, usually about things that happened in the recent past, in the last 7 days. But on the other side, we also know that dreams are always irrational. They are always fantastic experiences. And importantly, they are also full of emotions and often enough fear, such as in nightmares. So the first hypothesis about dreams' function is that they are important for our memory. And there are some elements which go in this direction. First of all, what we know by now, what is very well established, is that sleep is fundamental for our memories. I wanted to ask this quick question, whether you remember what was the first email that you received today, or what was the first message that you sent today? Well, if you remember these informations, it's because your brain has acquired them, which means that throughout the day, our brain is constantly tuned towards the external world and accumulating informations. Most of these are actually useless. So what we think, and we're starting to prove, is that sleep is the time when our brain reorganizes all these informations and decides what is important and has to be stored and what is not important and can be discarded. And we think that to dream helps this process. Accordingly, what we are starting to reveal is that in order for information storing, our brain needs to replay memories during sleep. And finally, there are a few studies which are now trying to directly associate dreams and memory performances. For example, in this study, people were trained in a cognitive task, and then they were allowed to take a nap, during which their brain activity has been recorded. And after the nap, they were asked to report whether or not they dreamed about the training. What it came out in a following memory test is that people who dreamed about the training had higher increase in the memory performances. So the second hypothesis about dreams function, and what is probably at the moment the most prominent hypothesis, is that they are important for the regulation of our mood and emotions. Accordingly, for example, we know that the neuronal circuit, the brain circuit, which is important for fear processing, is active during REM sleep. But not only this, it is possible to go even further and to show that the level of activation of this circuit, both before and after a stressful event, can predict how much stressful that event will be perceived. And also the number of reports showing the effect of decreased REM sleep and concomitant dreaming, they are now accumulating, and they mainly point towards one direction, which is mood disorders, such as increased irritability, anxiety and aggression, increased risk of developing post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as increased risk of depression. So in conclusion, and to summarize, these are the informations which I hope you understood. That we all dream, and we all dream every night, even if we don't remember our dreams. That yes, dreams happen during sleep, but not randomly during sleep. There are certain periods of our sleep when we dream. That dreaming is associated to a specific activation state of our brain, not only REM sleep, but also the specific activation or inactivation of different brain regions. And concerning dreams function, we can't at the moment exclude that dreams are just side products of the activity of our brain when we sleep. However, we tend to believe that they have some function, and in particular, that they are important for our memory and the processing of our mood and emotions. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you. I'll do the clapping.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandro. Would you mind stop sharing? Okay. So thank you so much to everyone that is watching us on Zoom. Feel free to ask your questions or raise your hands if you have a question. To everyone that is in the YouTube or Facebook, just write your questions on the chat and we'll pass them along. If you do have a question and you want to ask them directly, just join the Zoom that you have on the chat and just join us and you can ask the question yourself. So right now I have Carol and friends that has a question. Carol, you can, if you are able to, you can also turn on your camera so that then we can see you. Carol, you can ask your question. Do unmute yourself. Don't forget the microphone. Go. Oh, can anyone hear Carol?
No, I cannot hear.
Carol, where you went? Okay. While we leave Carol to try to figure out what is wrong with her sound, because we really cannot hear you, Carol. I will just gonna ask a question to Alessandro while we wait. I have a question. If there are people that don't remember their dreams, how can you do research about asking them their dreams? Isn't there like a disparity on the research? Because you are counting that when you wake up, people, they will remember the dreams and they will say, yes, I dreamed something. But what happens if you don't remember the dream?
So, well, I think in dream study, they, of course, have to use reports of people who actually dreamed. But there are studies about the capacity of recalling the dreams, which is supposed to be a different function than dreaming itself. So I suppose people who don't remember the dreams, it's not that they don't dream, they don't remember that, which is associated to some region of the brain, which is important from dream recalling.
Are there any cases of people that are actually unable to dream, some type of, I don't know, brain damage or some accident, and then there's no actual brain activity during sleep? Is this any? Is this an option?
There are some diseases which actually, some brain injuries which have been reported to completely prevent dreaming. On the one hand, it is difficult to dissociate whether, as I said, they are not dreaming or they don't remember the dreams. And on the second hand, so the literature is, unfortunately, to my knowledge, for what I could find, a bit not very, very congruent in the reports. I think they could highlight some areas, some regions which were damaged in that respect, but I couldn't find nothing else which actually connected that very region to further studies about the impossibility of dreaming. So definitely there are these kind of situations, but I couldn't find how reliable they are considered.
Okay. Carol was having some issues with her microphone. Her microphone is not working, but she wrote down her question. And she has a question about the graph that you showed about the different dream phases. And she asks, because on the graph, there is some jumps between the phases, big jumps on the graph. They appear big jumps between REM and non-REM sleep. And she asks if these jumps are something that is gradual, or actually you go from one to the other. So
I'm sure that it is gradual. It's not that steep.
2:32 p.m. And I hope this answered your question, Carol. If you need a follow-up, just write it down, okay? Frank also has a question, but Frank is here. Frank, do you want to ask your question yourself? You just need to unmute you.
I can ask my question, yes.
Yay.
So I was wondering if, like, dreaming increases your capacity to structure and map information, as you mentioned in your PPT. How can you encourage dreaming, actually? Because I think it's very beneficial for people to dream more.
This is a good question, and the answer is simply, like, I could find it like in a review which I read yesterday, is simply to sleep more, apparently. There is no other way but just get more sleep.
Okay, so there's no like kind of meditation or something you can actually encourage or invoke dreaming over a longer time period?
So I think there are some other methods which one can try, but probably they are not considered to be very reliable at the moment, because the conclusion was clearly sleep more.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Elena has her hand raised, but I have a question from Facebook. Just give me a second, Elena. So Mustafa from Facebook or YouTube, actually don't know, asks, what is the factor which is decisive for remembering dreams? So basically, why do some people remember dreams and others find it difficult to remember?
I don't think that is very well known, but I think it is associated to the activation of some brain region. For example, in the study that I have shown about the signature of dreaming, they couldn't actually distinguish whether this pattern of activation is associated to the ability of remembering, recalling the dreams, or dreaming itself, because all the studies are based on the reports of people who dream. There's no other way to understand whether people dream or not, at least to my knowledge.
Okay. Mustafa, if you need a follow-up, just write it down and we will ask. Elena had a question. So, Elena?
I'll give it a try with the microphone, but my internet connection is not so stable. I was wondering, maybe I missed it, but how do they dissociate the effect of sleep in the effect of dreaming on for whatever function they're attributing to dreaming? How can you say that it improved memory and it's not just sleeping? Does it?
And this is a good question. And the answer is that they cannot. To my knowledge, like the association of dreams with emotions is mainly based on the association between REM sleep and emotions, not dream itself. And the same for memory. Most of the studies are done either on memory replay and association with dreams or with REM sleep. So they can't. To my knowledge, it's not possible to properly check whether the association is with sleep or with dreams.
So as a follow-up, does it mean these studies also come out from animal studies? These results?
Yes. At least concerning REM sleep, some of these come up from animal studies. Yes. For example, the effect of how REM sleep impacts on fear response. This has been done in animals. Yes. I have actually just a minor thing to add to Frank's question. Indeed, like beside for increasing the sleep time, there are also some suggestions about how to improve the quality of sleep. Like, I don't know, since REM sleep is mainly happening in the last part of the sleep, for example, not to use an alarm clock in order to wake up, in order to just spontaneously wake up and not abruptly like wake up and stop a part of REM sleep is one of the suggestions, as well as being regular in your sleeping time, avoid consumption of some drugs, some alcohol, all these kind of substances which can interfere with the normal sleep. It's better to avoid them if possible. But these are the main suggestions that I could find. Nothing very specific towards dreaming more, to my knowledge.
I can ask a follow-up on Frank's, because even maybe you cannot dream more, but there are some things on the internet that say that you can have awareness inside the sleep, that you can do some meditation thing and then you can control your dreams. Do you know if this is in any way true, or there is an explanation for this?
So there is apparently some reports about lucid dreams, and people are actually trying to exploit them in order to properly study dreams, in order to know while you are sleeping whether you are dreaming or not, and try to study the activity of the brain. And from what I could get, as I said, the region of the brain which is important for some of the region of the brain which are important for the control of the situation are switched off while you dream. And this is why you believe that this is happening for real. And apparently, if these regions are on, then you get the control of the dream. You get a bit of more consciousness of the fact that you're dreaming.
Okay, that does make me a little bit more amazed at the power of the brain if we can control that by ourselves.
I'm not sure whether it's possible to train that lucid dreams. This I don't remember, to be honest.
Okay. Guys, any more questions? Feel free to ask them. I do have another question. While you were doing your talk, you said that there are more logical dreams and there are more emotional or vivid dreams, and that these happen in different phases of dream, right? why this distinction and why they appear in different phases?
So it's like the emotional and logical aspects of dreams is also associated to activation or inactivation of specific brain areas. So the fact that REM dreams are more emotional is believed to be mirrored by the activation of neuronal circuits important for emotional regulation. While since in non-REM sleep these are not on, or they are active but in a less prominent way, they are less emotional and they are more logical. And like why exactly this happens is not exactly known. But for example, it is nice to see that dreams that non-REM sleep, for example, is more studied for memory consolidation, for memory replay, and for the storing of our information. Not that REM sleep is not important for memory, just non-REM sleep is more characterized. People are more focusing their attention into non-REM sleep for these kind of studies. And it is interesting to note that dreams during this phase, indeed, they are more logical, they are more rational, and probably more related to our daily events. While instead, when you have the activation of brain circuits which are more emotional, you also have less rational dreams. But this is quite my speculation, to be honest. I couldn't find much about these aspects.
Okay. Frank has a really great question, and I wonder, as a follow-up, you will ask your own question, Frank.
Yeah, I can ask the question in person.
Yes. But it would be cool, actually, to know if, once you ask that question, if we could use those mechanisms to improve the study of scientists to use that to study dreams.
That's an interesting follow-up question, actually. But my question is actually, nowadays you have many smart bands, like that they can track your sleep, but including your REM sleep. So the next day after you wake up, you check your health, your sleep rhythm of the night, and then it actually tells you what dream phases you actually went and how many percentages you went in a certain phase. But I mean, what's actually the accuracy of these kind of smart bands compared to like academic research, like academic use ECG caps and everything?
I mean, I don't know the exact comparison, but I'm fairly confident in saying that they must be less accurate, way less accurate, I suppose. But I don't exactly know how accurate they are. I suppose people are trying to use them in order to increase the number of people in their studies. But I'm sure that they must be less accurate. Even, for example, like in the normal devices which are used for studies, it's not only possible to define the different sleep phases, it is possible to a relatively good detail understand what areas of the brain are active and when they are active. I don't think that like the other devices that you can wear while you dream can do this, or I don't see how that could be possible. I think they can just tell you what phase of sleep you went through and what percentage you went through these phases.
So the follow-up question, I think, from Liana. That's how can it be used also for how can these smart bands being used also to further the research into like this sleeping research? I mean, everybody has a smart band. It's fairly inexpensive, and the algorithms are being optimized according to thousands of users. So I guess there is a big potential here.
I'm sure that there must be some big potential, especially in increasing the number of people who are tracked and included into research studies. And I also think that probably they might be useful in order for tracking people when they are not in a laboratory, they are not in a scanner, they haven't attached all the devices that are important for the studies. And I didn't check, but I don't know how much they can actually change your feelings and your behavior when you sleep. People try to counteract this effect by using subjects who are trained in sleep studies, so that they are a bit habituated to the sleeping room and to being recorded and attached to all the devices. But I think that if there is the possibility of actually getting data from people who are sleeping in their house, it might be even better, more physiological, let's say, the condition. So in this respect, I can see the potential about these devices.
Okay, thank you.
Mustafa has another question. He's actually on YouTube. He asks if dreams are a sign for consciousness or intelligence. He also asks if the fact that humans can dream and animals can dream, if it's proof that there is that they have a third-person perspective of themselves, which in some areas is considered like a sign of intelligence.
So, to my knowledge, there are multiple questions in here, I guess. Concerning consciousness, I don't know, to be honest. Concerning intelligence, what I know is that indeed there are a few studies who tried to correlate dream reports and some intelligence tests, and they could find a positive correlation, meaning that people who had higher scores in these specific tests, they also reported more dreams. But I don't know how much this was, like in these kind of studies, there is a bit of everything and the opposite of everything. Some studies which confirmed this observation and some others which didn't. So it's a bit difficult to connect dream reports and personality of people, I think. And what is the other question about animals, about other species?
I can also ask if it is true that animals dream. I mean, we cannot ask them if they dreamed, but I guess you can measure their brain activity.
Yeah, exactly. Like we believe that other animals dream, and we believe these because they have REM sleep phases. The only other additional thing that has been done, to my knowledge, is to suppress the region that blocks the movements during the REM sleep, so that people could actually see animals performing their dreams. And for this reason, we believe that also other animals dream. Yeah.
And then the last part, whether animals or not can have a third person perspective of themselves. So they are dreaming that they are doing something, but so they are seeing themselves doing something. This is something that we cannot really know, or because you cannot ask them.
For sure, I don't know. And I think I'm not sure how this could be known. Yes.
Okay. Soham also has a question, a bit more related to the bands, to the Fitbit bands. Soham?
Hi. So my question was that how can just wearing a band on the wrist or arm tell you about the brain activity?
I suppose that it is also, I don't know for sure, like exactly how this happened, but I suppose that by monitoring the electric activity on the skin, as well as blood flow and heart rate, it is possible to infer the state of your sleep. And this can be done, I think, also from the arm, not necessarily by tracking the scalp, like by tracking the head. There must be multiple parameters which are associated to the different phases. The presence of movement, the pressure of your blood flow, the heart rate, the electric activity on your skin, and these kind of parameters all together.
Thank you. I have another question. You said that when we dream, the parts of our brain that control movement are switched off. But then, for example, when I get super stressed, I start sleep talking. And there are some people that sleepwalk. So and they think they're dreaming, but they are walking around the house. So how does this actually happen?
Well, I don't know the exact brain circuits which controls this kind of activity. But yes, indeed, sleep walking and sleep talking are supposed to be oniric behaviors, to like expression of your dreams. Why exactly this happens into some people? I believe that must be associated to some region of the brain which is active or inactive, and is not supposed to be. But I don't exactly know what is the region and the brain circuit.
Always knew I was weird. Frank has another question. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, we talk about dreams, but actually, what's the function of nightmare? I mean, are they like the opposite of dreams, or is it like a dream in a nightmare? What? Yeah,
thank you for the question. I wasn't sure whether to include also a couple of slides about nightmares, and for a matter of time, I decided to take them out. So nightmares, first of all, there is an interesting observation here, I suppose, and is the fact that while the word dream usually has a positive connotation, when you say I dream about something, you usually use it to express something positive. I dream about becoming a great scientist, for example. But true is that half, if not more, of our dreams are actually negative in their content, consistent with the fact that fear circuit and emotional regulation is supposed to be a process that dreams help. Nightmares is not exactly known, to my knowledge, why certain dreams become so stressful to be considered nightmares, but what they are considered to be is sort of a failure of emotional regulation. And what has been proposed is that the perception of nightmares is a bit like it depends both on the personality of the person and on the period you are experiencing. Stress, anxious period lead people the same content to consider it more stressful and then to consider it a nightmare, as well as the personality of individual people can lead you the very same content to consider it just a stressful dream or to perceive it as a nightmare. So it depends a lot on the personality of different people.
Oh, thank you. I have one question follow-up, if okay. So if the nightmares, I think they function as an important aspect of dreaming, but do they also have like a social or survival function, that you might dream of a certain situation which has been very frightening or very dangerous, and having a nightmare about it prevents you from doing it on the next time, like survival kind of thinking?
Yeah, this is sort of a evolution of nightmares, which happen to everybody, and then they become problematic. Like if they are so stressful that they start to become recurrent, or if a situation has been so stressful that your emotional regulation system can't deal with that, it might become problematic and lead to more nightmares about that. But again, this is a bit of my speculation. I'm not 100% sure about this.
Thank you.
Carol and friends have another question. I guess they have not fixed their mic. They want to know if there's a connection between dreams and déjà vu. Who is that feeling that you have lived this before, like in the Matrix?
I have no idea, to be honest. Sorry, I really don't know. I don't know.
Sorry, Carol. I would actually like to ask another question. Do children dream? So when do children start dreaming? And what type of dreams would children have? Food, I assume. I mean, I would dream of food all the time.
I think that yes, children also start like dreams. I don't know when exactly this starts to happen, but yeah, I'm sure that they also dream and start to dream. Probably like daydream is gonna be a bit more simple, a bit less full of experience and maybe stressful experience as adults, but they surely also dream. Yes.
Thanks. I have another question. What would you think, or what is your opinion about what are the big questions for the field of dreams? What are the things that you think that people are working on now that scientists want to know?
Well, I suppose that since the correlates of dreaming they are not there yet, the mechanisms which lead about dreaming they are not discovered, as well as the exact function of dreaming is not understood. These are still open questions, and people who study dreams they're probably focused about still these questions. I'm sure that the identification of an activity pattern which is highly associated to dream experiences, as well as the possibility of experiencing lucid dreams, are going to help the field. And indeed, people are thinking about exploiting these possibilities in order to help the field. I suppose that, like, if someone can invent a dream reading machine in order to be possible to explore animal dreams, that would be like the breakthrough in the field. But I don't know how this could be done.
Thanks, Alessandro. Elena, you raised your hand. Do you still have a question?
Yeah. Is there any research on sensory deprived people and how their dreams differ from, I don't know, to define everybody else, like, for example, blind people or deaf people? Do their dreams lead to the activation of the same regions that are maybe associated with sensory stimuli that wouldn't be activating in real life? And could dream be a getaway to get to the activation of these regions somehow, or a therapy kind of approach?
So I don't know about the regions, but I do know that, yes, like dream reports from blind people show that they also dream, but their dreams indeed is less visual than normal people who can see. But what is also interesting is that this depends on whether you were blind from when you were born. If you became blind throughout your life, then there is no difference in the content. These observations about these people are actually one of the strongest evidences that dream content is influenced by experience. Yeah.
That is really cool. Thank you, Elena, for the question. Guys, anyone has any more questions that you would like to ask? If not, then I will ask. Soham had a question. Sorry, Soham. Soham, okay, please ask your question. You need to unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, like I was just wondering whether people in comas also dream, or do they not dream at all?
Yes, I checked that. There's not too much about it. Apparently, there are both people who report about dreamlike experiences and people who don't. But coma is a situation which can be induced by many different reasons, and your brain state can be very different when, like, from people to people when you are in coma. So it really depends probably on what's the brain state, whether you do or not experience some dreamlike experiences. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Frank has a question.
Sorry. Just asking about your earlier question. I think, if I understand correctly, you said dreaming is a skill of the human body that babies and young children are not capable, but they learn it at a later age. Is it correct?
Oh, sorry?
I mean, are babies and young children able to dream? Or
they are.
Learn at a later age?
I'm sure that they are able to dream. Probably dreams evolve also with life, the content of the dreams, but surely also babies are able to dream. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think there are not that many questions anymore, but I have one last one. So dream research in the field of research and even neuroscience research, dream research has been considered for a long while to be a bit of a pseudoscience, something that is a bit wishy-washy and that people don't trust very much. But do you feel like the dream research field is moving more to the mainstream and that we should expect to see more and more research and papers being written about dream research?
I think there's going to be more research about dreams, but not much because evolved the consideration, the type of research about it. Mainly because for many years, whether dreams, and when I say dreams, I mainly speak about REM sleep, was or not beneficial for our body, it was not clear. This led for many years to the hypothesis that REM sleep was something which was happening, but probably useless. Only recently it has started to be shown that actually is very beneficial for our emotion, for our mood, for ourself. So people are starting to pay more attention about REM sleep, and also since society is changing a bit and lifestyle leads people to sleep less, the consequences of sleep deprivation, which often enough affects mainly REM dream, because REM dream mainly happens in the last part of the night, and when you sleep less, somehow the brain prioritizes non-REM sleep. So REM deprivation is one of the biggest consequences of sleep deprivation, and the effects on society are starting to become clear. So the attention about REM sleep is increasing apparently. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Alessandro. And with this, I think we will finish the question session. Unfortunately, we do not have enough people to do networking session as it was planned. But anyway, that's the reason why this question session was so long, because I thought, as we don't have a networking session, we might as well ask all the questions that we want. But now coming back to the 15x4, as you can see, the 15x4 is now happening in an online format. This is because of Corona. Like, all of us are working from home and having a lot of Zoom meetings lately. But because we can no longer have our in-person events, so we are also a bit struggling to get some sponsoring as well. So if you are financially stable and you do have a little bit, if you don't, then also just share it. If you do have, if you would like to support this, you can go to our GoFundMe page and just look for 15x4 Munich and maybe donate something if you're able to. If you're not able to donate, then please just share it on your social media. Maybe some of your friends will be able to help us out. We would like to thank some of our sponsors already that have helped us out. And the idea of getting this money is to make better events, both online and in person, whenever we are allowed to have in-person events again, hopefully soon. Our next event is actually going to be an in-person event. It's going to be on the 𝗍𝗿𝗺𝗃 Museum, where the rules for social distancing are well established. So this is one of the places where we can have an in-person event. Feel free to come. It's going to be on the 23rd of August, a Saturday, starting from 12. We're going to have 4 amazing talks. We're going to talk a bit about Bitcoin. We're going to talking about predicting the extinction of species. We're going to talk about science. And we're going to talk about how can machines learn speech. So please join us. We will be very happy to see you. And then you can also ask more questions. For now, 15x4 is going to make a break, including the online chit-chat sessions. We will be back on the 1st of October with a little bit of a different format, but still online. So just stay tuned and just come join us on the 1st of October when we come back. No networking session, unfortunately, because there's not enough of us today. I assume people were outside enjoying the nice weather. But we had a nice question and answer session. So thank you to all of you that participated and allowed us to make this event a success. If you would like to still have a networking event where you can communicate and discuss whatever topics you wish with different people, you can try this Random Coffee app. This application will allow you to be randomly selected to a chat with another person that also belongs to this Random Coffee app. And there you will be able to meet very interesting people and maybe share some ideas and have talks that you had never thought about having before. It's a good way of meeting new people and making new connections. So just join us. And with this, it's the end of today's chit-chat session. Follow us on our social media pages and check our YouTube channel for other talks, previous talks that we have done before. And I hope to see you at the 𝗍𝗿𝗃 Museum. It would be cool to meet you at the social distance way. So thank you to all of you and have a good night. Bye.